What is going on, everybody? It is Monday, and so excited to be back with a new Right to Real Love MenChat. As you can see, I'm joined by three amazing guys on the podcast today, and this is going to be an amazing discussion. Already had so many people hit me up about the topic. Why women should stay after men cheat. Yeah. We're going to dive into that today. You're going to get to hear the perspectives of a variety of different men. Before we get into the topic, I want to give each of these men the opportunity to introduce themselves. So, Michael, let's start with you. Let the people know your name, your age, your marital status, and whether or not you think there's legitimate reasons why women should stay after a man cheats.
All right, my name is Michael J. Griffin Jr. I'm the host of the Developing Dad podcast. You can find me at Developing Dad Podcast on YouTube. I am 43 years old. I am happily married to my wife Nasha, and we have 5 children. And I'm going to say that it depends. We got to get some, we got to find out some more information before we give a yay or a nay. But there could be legitimate reasons. So I'll say yes for now.
That's fair. That's fair. Koron, what about you, bro? Give an introduction of yourself. Let the people know who you are.
So yeah, my name is Koron Pierre. I'm 36 years old. I'm engaged. I have one daughter. So my channel, I have a relationship channel. Right now, I have a series called 100 Things a Man Wants. We're on episode 28, and basically, I just give some insight as to what men desire from their ladies. It's been a pretty good experience thus far. And as far as this topic, should a woman accept a man if he cheats? I would also say it depends, but based on the what I've been researching thus far, I don't think it's possible.
Oh, that's real. That's real.
Yeah.
Nelson, introduce yourself to the people. Let them know a little bit about you as well.
What's going on, everyone? My name is Gary Nelson. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I run my private practice, Nelson Counseling, and I also have a social media channel on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook under Nelson Counseling. And I provide all types of mental health counseling, whether it's depression, anxiety, marriage counseling. And inside on my YouTube channel, I really focus on I focus a lot on relationships, and I focus on mental health disorders and how they can play out in the context of your relationship. So helping our community pick up on signs that we may not necessarily know about or think about, and how that how it ends up playing out and working out in your relationship. I'm 38, married 11 years. I have 4 kids, 1 newborn as of last month. And the question was, should a woman stay after she's been cheated on? That's definitely it. It definitely depends. But I think there's a lot of good reasons why she should stay.
All right. Yo, I love it. All of you gentlemen are doing amazing things on YouTube. You guys open a separate tab in the description box. You will find a link for all of their channels so you can go and show each of them some love and support. But without further ado, let's get right into this thing. So I want to start it off with this question, and I'm going to come to you with this one first, Michael. I want to know, why do some men have an expectation for women to stay after they've cheated on them?
That's a really good question. Right. So why do some men have an expectation that women? All right. So I'm just going to go with this. Most men believe that the women that they're with are theirs, right? For lack of a better term, right? So they believe that they've, I'm going to use it, planted their flag there, and that the woman is for them, and that if she does stray, or if she goes, let's just use the terminology, cheats. I guess he's thinking that she should want to be with him, and that he's the best. I mean, most of us men think we're like the top of the mountain when it comes to men. I mean, we're we don't really think of ourselves as like the lowest of the low, right? We have pretty high opinions of ourselves, right? That's biblically speaking. That's where I come from. Biblically speaking, pride is not pride. Humility isn't the thing that God teaches us that we need to have. I mean, it is. Pride is the thing that He teaches us that we need to forego. So pride is something that we all share. But I would say it's probably a pride issue, right? How can she find something better than me, right? That may be a good starting point.
Nah, that's good. That's good. And I want to give some shout outs in the chat to Tiffany and Miss Pollard. So glad to have you guys joining us. If you have questions or any comments, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll definitely address them and show you guys some love as well. But coming over to you, Koron, what's your
Yes.
thoughts on why some men have this expectation that, hey, even if I cheat on her, she gonna stay?
Well, I think, well, if we're talking about physical cheating, men, they sort of look at physical cheating as something that's not as serious as emotional cheating. So they think, because they feel as though women value emotions more than the men do. So they think that, well, as long as you're not in love with the next woman, then, it's not that serious. But the truth is, honestly, I don't really, I'm trying to be objective about this, but I don't really see why a man feels that way. I think that um, you know, it could be like what the developing dad said, that we think that we're the cream of the crop, especially if a man has status, high value man, so to speak. I think that does come into play, but I think it has a lot to do with the fact that men think that physical cheating is not as serious as emotional cheating.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And before I throw the question at you, Gary, want to get your thoughts. What are some of those differences between physical and non-physical cheating that you're aware of as a counselor?
I mean, to me, that's just as kind of simple as it sounds. A physical cheating, of course, is sleeping with somebody else, um, doing other sexual type things with someone else, spending inordinate amounts of time with someone else, if that is against what the kind of foundations of the marriage is. Emotional cheating, that's the one that hurts a lot. Um, that can be anything from confiding things inside of another person that should be rightfully confided to your wife. So, talking to another woman about your marriage, talking to another woman about man or woman about things that are going on in your life, and that person is now the first person you think of to speak to rather than your significant other. And again, it's looking at it from the standpoint of what is the foundation of your marriage. If your marriage was built to where it was supposed to be just the two of you and that information was kept between the two of you, if you step outside of that, then that's a betrayal.
That's real. And anything that you want to add to what Michael and Karan have mentioned with regards to the expectation that some men have that a woman will just forgive them and stay after they cheat?
Yeah, I think that speaks to how your relationship was set up from the beginning. Sometimes a guy can get with a woman and know that she doesn't have a lot of options and know that she was head over heels for him, and that he knows if he does anything, she's not going to go anywhere because she may have low self-esteem. She may not that she may have think that she has too much invested inside of the marriage or the relationship, like talking about kids being in play. If the man is the breadwinner, if he's bringing all the finances to the table, and if he set a standard in terms of the way that he talks to her, if all throughout the relationship he had been talking to her in a manner where he put himself on a pedestal and always reminded her of how good he's been and always highlighted himself and always made her feel less than, and that she should be more appreciative of him and she should do this and that because some other woman would be willing to do that. You set that kind of standard, then you can be the cause of low self-esteem inside of the woman, to where if you step out, she's going to feel like, I can't do any better, I might as well just stay. He may not have meant it. He may not meant to do it. And, there's a lot of different psychological things that can go into why she would, why men feel like it's right to do that and why a woman would stay.
Nah, that's good. All of you gentlemen drop some gems. So before I move on to the next question, are there any questions that you have for one another about anything that anyone has shared thus far? No? All right, cool. So So I want to come back to you, Michael, with the second question, which is, how would you say the way that men process cheating differs from the way women process it?
Well, I think we've sort of hit on that a little bit with the distinctions I think that both Nelson and Koron made, is that women emotional, like there's women connect more emotionally, right? So a man can think physically, I'm out here, spreading my seed, I guess would be a good way to say it, so you don't get demonetized. Uh, spreading his seed, but he doesn't have any emotional attachment to the women he's engaging in this the behavior with. But then for a woman, most times, and again, we're in our society, we're trying to train women to not to be more like men. But the idea is that women connect more emotionally. So for a woman to give herself over physically, generally, it's because she has some sort of emotional connection to the person. It's not something that she's just going to do randomly, right? Because again, like men were designed by God to be fruitful and multiply. Women need to be more guarded. Women sort of bring us back to this idea of being responsible and then taking care of what we create. So again, women have this component of emotional connection that men don't have as much of, where men can go out and just kind of cheat, I guess, without feeling emotionally connected to the women that he's cheating with. And again, women, on the other hand, will most times feel that emotional connection. So
Nah, that's good. That's good. So I see Black Belt is in the building. Just wanted to welcome him to the stream. In the chat, definitely let us know what your thoughts are. What are some of the differences that you guys have noticed about how men and women process cheating? We would love to hear from you guys. And in the meantime, Karan, what are some of the differences that you've noticed with regards to how men and women tend to process cheating?
From a source. It was a source that found that men were more likely to engage in mate abandonment behavior after sexual infidelity than after emotional infidelity, and with this pattern reversed for women. So woman is the opposite for women. So women are more likely to abandon a man after emotional infidelity as opposed to physical infidelity. So I guess that could be one difference. I think the main difference, like he's like developing. I'm sorry, I can't remember your first name, but like he just stated, I think that women are definitely more emotional, and men are more into the physical. So I guess that's another saving grace, I guess, for men. If a man can convince a woman that, hey, this was just a physical, fling, a woman may find it a lot more easier to forgive him versus, a guy who was head over heels for his high school crush and he happens to run into her. Now that might be tough because maybe now the high school crush doesn't want him, so now he's going to take you back because his options is limited now. It's funny, like when a man's options is limited, that's when he becomes more prone for monogamy. It's kind of interesting, but that's one difference I would say.
Nah, that's good. And I'm glad you pointed that out. I'm curious, what's that study again?
I got to get it for you. I don't have the title right here. What I can do is I can get a link for you.
That'd be perfect because
Um,
I would love to read more about that because I
yeah.
think that study is spot on. Like, definitely let me know what you think about this, Gary. But yeah, I think that women are a little bit more prone than men to stay with a partner who has physically cheated versus, the flip side. Like, once a woman knows that a man has been emotionally involved with a woman, because that I would say, is it fair to say that's kind of rare in most cases with most men to get emotionally attached to women that they're not in a exclusive relationship with. So I could see why a woman would be a lot more leery to proceed or remain in a relationship with a man who cheated in that fashion. But no, I want to come over to you. Definitely let us know what your thoughts are, Gary, on the differences. Are there any that you've noticed between how men and women tend to process cheating?
Yeah, definitely. And this isn't, a one size fit all kind of thing, but a lot of times with men process cheating as a complete betrayal and something is wrong with the woman. She is no good. You know what I mean? She's just she's just a bad person. We'll process them as just she's a bad woman. I picked the wrong person. With women, it tends to be a little bit different. What I've been seeing is a lot of what's wrong with me. I wasn't enough, and will constantly seek answers. And a lot of times that's why I think that they stay inside of relationships longer, because there's this ongoing conversation of, okay, well, what was it? What wasn't I doing? What was it that this other person had that I didn't have? And it just ends up becoming a lot of questions with guys. And now, as Koron, did I say your name right, Koron?
Yes, you did.
Okay. What he was saying was true in that with guys, it can be, I forgot what he was saying now. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. But with guys, it can be completely detached from emotion. There doesn't need to be anything, like we don't need to confide inside of another woman. It could literally just be like, I need to get some, and my wife is not putting out a lot, or when she does, it's not enough. It's not good. She doesn't know how to please me. And so you have those extreme moments where it's like, look, I got to do something. And when there is where we fall into kind of some pitfalls is that if we have options on the table, if we have been the type of person that flirted a lot with other women, we keep women in our company that we know desire us, it makes it so much easier for us to cheat, because now when we have those extreme moments where we really just want to do something, now your mind starts to go in different places. Well, I wonder what so-and-so is like, you know what I mean? So whereas with women, the idea is like, if we marry a woman, that means we gave her our heart. It means this is the person that we said we can be vulnerable with. She can have every last part of me. So the idea that she would go and be with another man, it's like it destroys your heart. So it's like it's very hard for men to recover from that. And the ones that do try to recover a lot of times ends up being the ones they recover in a sense of, well, now I'm going to change my outlook on this relationship to where I'm going to do my own thing. I'm just not going to tell her, I'm going to get my payback, or I'm going to hold it over her head the entire time. And that part right there is kind of both men and women. There's a lot of holding it over the other person's head.
Wow. Yo, you brothers are dropping some gems. Before I bring up our next question, I want to point out some of the comments that we got so far in the chat. So let me go back up a little bit. So first and foremost, we got my man JD in the building. I want to shout him out. So thank you for joining us on the stream, JD. We appreciate it, bro. Also, we had this comment come in from Black Belt from the Dojo of Manhood. He said, a woman should stay if she has no better alternative for a man, which most do not. Very few women actually level up from their husband to a better tier man or an equivalent man. So I just want to kind of go around the room really quick and just say, agree or disagree with this statement from the gentleman here in the room. So, Michael, you agree or disagree with this statement?
I partially agree with it. I think that the second statement is true. Very few women actually level up from their husband to a better tier man or an equivalent man, but I don't think that's an argument for whether or not she should stay. I don't think those two things, one statement follows or logically follows the next.
Okay, that's fair. Koron, what about you? You agree or disagree?
I disagree. And one of the reasons why I disagree, I do understand you have certain cities like Atlanta where the male to female, well, the female to male ratio is a little higher, but America as a whole is roughly 1-to-1. I mean, it's 51% women, 49% men. So yeah, if a woman wants to find a man, she definitely can. And also about half a no, I would say more like 61% of women who are single are not even looking for a man. So this idea that a woman is going to have a hard time finding a man, I kind of disagree with that. Now, will it be a better man than the man she had? If you're basing it off of like class or how much money he makes, maybe not. But if you're basing it off of the fact if whether the guy is the right guy for her, a guy that's going to love her, a guy that's going to be committed to her, I think she definitely could find a guy that's going to treat her a lot better than the previous guy. So,
Nah, that's good. That's good. And what about you, Gary? You agree or disagree with the statement?
I'm half and half on it. I don't think that there's a scenario where a woman should stay if she doesn't have a better alternative, because I'm looking at the outlook of that relationship now. How can you have a relationship that doesn't have bitterness in it? Like, if you're only with this person because I know there's nowhere else I'm going to go, you're not going to put 100% inside of that relationship. You're going to do the bare minimum. You're not going to be concerned with that other person. Is like, you see that a lot in older marriages, that they only stayed together because of the kids, and now when the kids are out the house, it's like they're like roommates. And with the part about very few women actually level up from their husband, I think more traditional women, I think that we can't say that they don't level up, because a lot of times they tend to be a lot more loyal. So they'll stick it out inside of the relationship and don't entertain another man. And then you have to also look at other men too. Like, other men could be very leery of engaging with a woman that is either coming out of a marriage or coming out of a relationship, or still in it and now looking, and he's now trying to take her, because then it's like, well, at some point in time, is she going to do the same thing to me? So, there's other factors that kind of play into that.
Nah, that's real. And I appreciate you gentlemen for sharing your thoughts, and definitely appreciate Black Belt for sharing his perspective. We always appreciate that. We had another comment come in from Tiffany. She was saying that cheating is a betrayal. I think that everybody here on the panel would agree with that for sure. And we also had another comment that came in from Black Belt. He said, "Oh, that's easy. What higher quality of man was?" Oh, hold on. Oh, I think this is. Let me stop. I think that was in reference to somebody else's that had asked him a question. So I'm gonna let them have their conversation. So let me see.
Jay, if you want, I got that source. I got the name to that
Oh,
source.
perfect. What is it?
Cited. It's exploring intergenerational patterns of infidelity, personal relationships. It's on page 24, and that's from 2017. I can send you the link if you would like to put it in the description.
Yeah, definitely, man. Email it to me after the show, and I'll definitely make sure that I include it. So anybody that wants to go back and access it, I know I definitely want to read it. So I appreciate you for sharing that. Thank you.
No sweat.
Yeah, here it was. We had a question that came in from Tiffany. She says, "Do men feel that it is quote unquote really the woman's fault because he cheated?" So want to go around the room again. Michael, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I can't speak for all men, so I'm gonna couch that.
Just yourself.
Do I think that it is really the woman's fault because a man cheated? No, I don't think it's the woman's fault that a man, like, we have to take personal responsibility for our own actions. It doesn't matter how many meals my wife says she's not going to cook me, or how long she withholds intimacy from me. At the end of the day, I'm the one in control of my own actions. And I can say whether or not I'm going to go out and be unfaithful. So I don't think that it's ever the woman's fault. She can't push me to do certain things. That means I don't have an agency in and of myself, right? So yeah, she can make it, give me reasons or give me justifications to go out and do that. But even those justifications do not, in the end, they're not the thing that makes me do it.
Nah, that's real. Because at the end of the day, right, the choice is always yours, right? Yeah, that's good. Koron, what's your take on Tiffany's question?
I agree with him 1,000%. I might have to go off the professional grid with this comment. I think that if a man complains about his woman sexually, I feel as though that is more of how should I say this? It's more of a bad look on him. Maybe his ability in the bedroom is not that good, because I feel like a man, you can develop sexual compatibility with a woman. I mean, and for a woman's from a woman's standpoint, there's no way a man could become more well endowed. But as far as a woman, I mean, you can learn, different tricks and things in the bedroom. So I think that if that's going to be an excuse to cheat, I don't think that that's a good excuse to cheat. And I think, like he said, men need to take responsibility for their own actions. You got into a committed relationship, and if you no longer want commitment, then you should express it and step out of the relationship instead of continuing the lie. That's just my stance on it.
Nah, that's good. That's good. And Gary, what's your take on this question from Tiffany?
I actually think that there can actually be some culpability in it for women sometimes. And it's not it's definitely a case by case type of thing. Um, but you have to look at like the nature of their relationship. Does she withhold intimacy from him? Um, does he feel like he's all like it's being given to him as a reward? Like, you know, has it been weeks, months, between the last time? And sometimes sometimes women do this as a test to see if their man's going to remain faithful. So to a certain degree, at the end of the day, yeah, you are a man. If you did cheat, you have to you got to own up to that and know that you did go through the action of making it happen. But as with everything, you can't just say this man cheated, now he's a bad man, because you have to look at the entire context. Like if their marriage or their relationship was if there was more communication in it, if they were actively trying to please one another, then he's a lot less likely to cheat or think about cheating. But a lot of our thoughts about cheating come into our head when we really want it and we're frustrated because it was refused to us, or we just did it and it was wet. Like, but then you also have to look at the larger context of that. Do you communicate with the person that you're with and tell them what you like and what you don't like? A lot of couples don't have the very awkward conversation in the beginning, like when they're being intimate, like, do this, don't do that, I like this, I don't like it when you do this. Like, give each other the opportunity to learn one another's body. It definitely is a skill. Like, you can get better at having sex. Like, that's not an issue. Like, the one thing you can't account for is your size. But I mean, women that love you, like, they tend to look past that and they look at the other things that you're bringing to the table in the bed. Like, there's no shortage of toys and techniques that you can incorporate to keep your love life spicy. So um yeah, at the end of the day, major responsibility goes onto the man, but you also have to look at the greater context.
Wow. Again, great answers across the board. Tiffany is saying, "Amen. Thank you, brothers, for acknowledging the need for personal accountability." And that's real. That's real. So there was a question that I had because I've been letting a few different ladies know about this upcoming men chat. They always want to know when we're doing men chat. And almost every woman like stopped when she saw the title. Like, hold on, why should women stay after, a man cheats? And one of the questions that kept coming up is, should the woman stay if she's in a relationship outside of a marriage, in a marriage, or both? So I want to pass that question around to the gentleman here. Is the staying only something that should happen in a marriage? Should it happen in relationships that are not a marriage, or both? So let's come to you, Michael. What's your take? If a woman is staying, which one should that fall into?
All right. So, from a biblical perspective, everything that's not marriage is fornication. So, if she wants to leave on that one, like, deuces. For marriage, it gets a little bit more involved, right? Because then you have to decide whether, like, if you have children, you've taken the covenant before God. These things all matter. right? But again, I tell people again, if both of y'all, if y'all going together and y'all not married, whether y'all leave or not, I know there's probably Gary's probably gonna tell you there's still psychological issues and things like that. I know. I'm gonna let you handle that part, and I'm gonna approach this strictly from a biblical perspective. I would say if y'all are having sex and you're not married, stop. All right, stop, because that's fornication. All right. The second thing I would say is if you're in a covenant relationship with someone else, recognize that God has made you one flesh, right? That there's something beautiful about that picture of you being with that one person for life. And if you choose to stay, know that there's forgiveness that can be found in that one flesh union, but it's got to be a joint effort. It cannot be just one person, like Gary was talking about, um, the guy, demeaning the woman and making her feel like she's lesser than, or vice versa. You have to, if you're going to walk in forgiveness, you have to be willing to change your mind about the things that brought you to that point where someone was cheating or committing adultery in this instance, and then work to change those things. And whether that be, talking with your pastor, going to a counselor, whatever that is, you've got to put the work in. So I would say that would be my call. Like if you're not married, stop doing that stuff, right? But if you're married, right, then actually, and I want to piggyback off of what Gary said. That, like, truly, I would say this. I'm gonna finish with this. I agree wholeheartedly with him about learning your partner sexually. The best sex that my wife and I had was the last time, because every time it gets better and better and better, because we learn each other more and more. We communicate, we talk about what we like, and we do what the other one likes. So that was my feeling for the last question.
Yo, that's good. Yo, I appreciate you for answering that, Michael. And before I come over to you, Koron, I just want to give a huge shout out to Cynthia for joining us. Thank you so much. She says, hello, gentlemen, and hello to everybody in the chat. We appreciate you for joining us today. And we did get a really great question that came in from Tiffany, but it's a little off topic, but I think it's a great question. So if we have time near the end, I'll circle back around and bring it out. So Tiffany, I definitely saw your question and I'm gonna get to it, but I will keep us on topic for the moment. So coming over to you, Koron. When it comes
Yes.
to women staying, is that something that they should only do if they're in a marriage, outside of a marriage, or both?
I think if they're gonna, I think it could happen for both, but I think even in both situations, it's going to be hard to recover from infidelity. Of course, now there's different types of even physical infidelity, and that's a whole nother thing we could get into. But I would say it depends on whether or not, going back to what we spoke about earlier, um, was the guy emotionally involved with the woman? Does he love this woman? Does he has any feel like if the guy's going to stop, right? That's the first thing. But I think in both cases, if we're going to say that you can forgive someone, I don't think marriage or a commitment or outside of marriage it makes a difference.
Nah, that's fair. That's fair, Koron. And what's your take on that, Gary? Relationship, marriage, both. When should she stay?
I don't think it matters as much anymore. You look at there's long-term situationships going on now. So, and not everybody is a believer, and the people that tend to be believers are not tend to, but there's a lot of believers in name only. Like they identify as Christian just because like they were born to say that. It's the same as them identifying as Democrat. Like you just affiliate yourself without knowing the reason why. So a lot of these relationships, they go on for years. You're living together. You do everything that is inside of a marriage just without the official papers. So I don't think that there's much of a difference. There's a financial difference that you got to take into account after you get married, but that's honestly inside of relationships too, because after a certain amount of time in certain states, you can be considered common law marriage. So that doesn't always apply also. So I just think that if you're a believer, if you're a Christian, and you get married, you have more of a reason to stay because you have that greater accountability to God. Um, you have that extra layer of like, I want to honor God in everything I do. And though he did give me a way out to divorce this person because it was adultery, like that that was only because of the hardness of your heart. So if you're in just a regular relationship, you don't identify as one thing or another, it's a lot easier to leave the relationship. You don't have that extra pulling that makes you want to persevere and fight through the adversity that just came into the relationship.
Oh man, yo, I'm loving it, yo. You brothers are bringing the heat tonight, yo. It is heating up. I'm appreciative of everybody in the chat sharing great comments and questions. If you guys have any comments or questions that you want to share and you're tuning in, definitely feel free to drop them in the chat. If you haven't already, definitely hit the like button, subscribe to our channel if you want more great content like this. And let's see, we did have a comment that just came in from Tiffany. It says, when trust is eroded, it doesn't matter if you're married or dating and cheating. However, in marriage, more to weigh before walking away. And I think that that's a really great point. Really great point. So before we proceed into tonight's main question, I want to give the floor to my man Michael to let you guys know more about him, his channel, how you can show him some love and support. So with all, I'm giving it over to you, Michael. The floor is yours, man. Let them know how they can show you some love and support and check you
All
out.
right, I'll keep it short. You see the name there is The Developing Dad. That's my channel. I tackle issues of fatherhood, manhood, manosphere, logic, rhetoric, talking about virtue, all from a biblical worldview. And yeah, we're trying to build up men, develop dads, develop godly character in men using my channel. So hit me up over there. Just search Developing Dad, or you can type youtube.com/C/Developing Dad Podcast. I also have a Patreon and a Twitter and a Facebook. You can find all of that stuff on the YouTube page. Since you're already on YouTube, just go ahead over there and you'll find all the information.
Fantastic. As you guys can see, I just dropped a link to his channel in the chat and also in the description. Wherever you're watching this on YouTube, you can also find a link to the Developing Dad channel as well. So open up another tab, hit subscribe, show him some love and support. We would definitely appreciate it. And without further ado, we're going to get into tonight's main question, which is, what are some of the reasons why a woman should stay after cheating? So Michael, give us one or two that you think people should take into consideration.
So why should she stay after cheating? That's a good question. I'm going to go with the easiest answer. Okay. If they have children. Now I know Gary's probably going to look at me like, are you crazy? Like, what's going on? But I think if there are children involved, deeper consideration needs to go into whether or not you stay or go. And I would say that's probably one of the more important aspects to think about. Not that it should be a, like definite stay, but it should be something you take into consideration. Is he a loving father, right? So maybe he made a mistake. Like, again, it's just so nuanced, and Gary's been highlighting that better than we could because he's experienced so much of this through his counseling sessions. It's just hard to give an answer, a yes or no, or a very concrete answer, because every situation is so different. But I would say just considering the fact that if there are children involved, more weight needs to be given to the decision whether or not to leave. So,
that's good. Coming over to you, Koron. What do you think are some reasons, whether one or two, just to get us started on why a woman should stay after a man cheats on her?
So you definitely going to get a objective answer. The personal me is like, no. But the relationship guy in me is like, well, pump the brakes. Let's try to, be objective. The one thing I'm gonna say is, if you are gonna take him back, he has to pass a series of STD tests. These tests have to come back negative. STDs is the ugly truth that a lot of people, adults, don't like to bring up, especially when we're talking about hookup culture, and like people are just running around here. Condom usage is less and less. So they're not even practicing safe sex. Like, safe sex is not even a thing anymore. So I think the one thing that he's definitely going to have to do, if you're going to even build on anything, is and that's a hurdle that I don't know how you get past, because it's not just going to be one test. It's going to have to be a battery of tests. And those tests have to be negative for a period of time to make sure that now your monogamous relationship isn't tainted. So, I mean, that would be one thing if I had to say, if a woman's going to take a man back, he can't come up dirty.
Oh, that's real. That's real, man. Yo, that's a good point. Good point. So I saw somebody in the chat that joined us. JD Clay, what is going on? Welcome to the show. We appreciate you for tuning in. Right now, as you guys can see going across the ticker, we're talking about some of the reasons that a woman should stay after a man cheats on her. And Michael and Koron, they definitely just gave us two really good reasons. Coming over to you, Gary, what's one or two reasons that you think a woman should stay?
I definitely disagree with developing dad on that staying because of kids thing. Well, you know what? It depends. Like, I don't see a point in staying inside of a marriage for the sake of kids if you're now about to show the kids a horrible marriage as the result of the infidelity. So now if you're seeing quiet households, you're not seeing communication between the two of you anymore. You're seeing constant arguing. You're seeing dad has now changed his outlook on what he thinks about women. Then there's a good chance you may do more damage to your kids than if you just be honest with them, let them know that you're separating, go your separate ways, and then take the next step in learning how to co-parent. I do think that a good reason to stay is because you actually really truly love this person, and not just the feeling of love. Like you have the actual action. You're actively loving this person. You have been. So you've been patient with them. You've been kind to them. You've been considerate of their feelings. Like you've tried to do everything that would be in their best interest. I don't see a reason to stop that, especially depending on the context of why he actually cheated. If sometimes there is just a moment of weakness for men. So if he's not a habitual cheater, if this is something that came as the result of it was the worst set of circumstances all put together that allowed for it to happen, and you did it without thinking, and you're truly remorseful, and you put together a plan with your wife going forward, like, listen, in order for this not to happen again, I'm going to make sure I don't have any women's numbers inside of my phone. I'm not engaging in any kind of extra conversation with anyone that's outside of the confines of what would be acceptable in my marriage. I'm not going anywhere solo with anyone. When you're honest with yourself and you're honest with your spouse about why this happened, and you're showing that you're actively taking those things that were now that will cause you to cheat, you're taking them out of taking it out of the consideration, then if you see that in a person, then you can practice forgiveness. But if you see somebody that is like, this has been a habit, and every few months, so-and-so is stepping out, like, then you got to take a look at what's really inside this guy's heart. You know what I mean? Does he have a problem? Does he have a problem with lust? Is he addicted to anything? Are you just not enough for him? Does he need a variety of women? Then you got to take a look at it and be like, there's a strong chance that this is going to continue on. There's a strong chance that I'm going to get hurt again. So it's best to just cut ties and let him go and do what he has to do, and let him go get himself together.
Oh man, all of y'all are dropping gems, yo. They're giving all of y'all love in the chat. So I want to thank everybody once again that's in the chat. They're giving Koron love. They're giving Michael love, and you as well, Gary. So I want to just give a huge shout out. Tiffany is dropping so many great questions. I think I may try to slide one of these in. I want to give a shout out to Market Mergers for joining us today. I want to give a huge shout out to Jessica Jones for joining us today, and JD. And I just saw Katiwe stopped in as well. So I just want to say thank you all for joining us on the show. Glad you guys are enjoying it thus far. So I'm trying to think. Okay, I'm gonna come back to that question, Tiffany. You asked a really great question. It does tie into this, but first, well, no. Let me ask this question. Hold on. So she wanted to know if it's a daughter, wouldn't that be setting a pattern for her to accept this behavior in her relationship? Meaning that if the father cheated, the mother decided to stay, does it somewhat condition her to follow that pattern? What's your take on that, Michael?
Yeah, I mean it could be. I mean, again, these topics are so nuanced. It's difficult to give just like a straight yes or no answer. Like even
Mhm.
when Gary was just describing the initial scenario that he described in his first answer, I would agree 100% with that. Like I'm, if you paint it in the most negative way, then I'm definitely going to say, yeah, get out of there. Don't be around that man anymore. But again, if I'm looking at it from the perspective of is this a one-time thing? Is he remorseful? Did he repent? Is he walking like in a way that would lead you to believe that this will not happen again? Then I would say if it's a daughter, that could teach your daughter about forgiveness and about how to hold your husband accountable. Again, there's so many different nuances to this. You would have to give very specific examples. And again, I'm pretty sure like Gary's seen these things in his counseling. Every situation is going to be so different and so nuanced that it's difficult for us to get on here and just say with, like yes or no to that question, right? Because again, it really depends on the people. It depends on the age of the daughter. It depends on how often he's cheated. It depends on so many differing factors that, again, I can't say yes or no, but I can give a scenario where I'd say yes or no, right?
Nah, that's real. That's real. Karan, any comments you want to make towards Tiffany's question? Hold on, I think you're muted. There you go.
Okay, I'm good. I'm back now. This is a really good question. Before I answer this question, I do want to shout out Market Mergers. That's my fiance. She supported me listening.
Yes.
Uh, but shout out to her. But to answer this question, I do think, like Mike was saying, that it is hard to give cookie cutter answers. Things are definitely situational. Um, Different situations require different answers. But I don't believe and I'm not under the impression that once a cheater, always a cheater. But I don't buy it that it's only a one-time thing. Like, I don't have anything I could cite right now on that, but typically when there's smoke, there's fire. I just don't see it as a uh I mean, I'm not saying that it can't be a situation where it's a one-time thing, but for the most part, I think that when there's smoke, there's fire. It's something to be cautious about. And it's, in terms of if you have a daughter and she's watching this, and especially if it's a repeated pattern, that definitely can have an impact on the kid. And now when she grows up, she may think that a man isn't a man if he doesn't treat her the way her father treated her mother, or if it's a stepfather treated her mother. So I do think that it can have a negative impact on the kids.
Yeah, and I'm glad you
Nah,
said
that's
that at
good.
the end, kids, because again, the sons can be affected by this as well. So yeah,
Right.
they could
Right.
be the same set, seeing
Yeah,
that as a
sons as
set
well.
pattern, right?
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And your fiance is shouting you out as well, Karan, in the chat. And then Tiffany, she shared a little bit about her personal experience. She said that her mother dealt with infidelity and stayed, but later in life she became bitter and resentful, and she made a decision to never tolerate infidelity in her relationships as a result. And I think that a lot of people can say that they've experienced something similar to that. I know most people that I've had conversations with are not tolerable to cheating. And like I've always personally, kind of like Karan had mentioned earlier, if I'm looking at things personally, I've always had a hard and fast rule where it's just like, yo, if you cheat on me, it's a wrap. Clearly over the years, I've began to look at things more objectively and consider, like Michael, Karan, as well as Gary have mentioned tonight, every situation is different, every relationship is different, and you don't know how invested you are at the point when this occurs. And that's the one thing that I've had to acknowledge as a man is like, it's easy for me to say, like, if I'm just in a relationship or I'm single, to say, hey, if she cheated on me, I'm out of there, I'm not putting up with it. But who's to say, like, if I've invested so much into this woman, this relationship, our family, I got to stop and think. Like, it's not, I don't think it's something that I could just easily walk away from. I think that we all could acknowledge as men that we would definitely be hurt. But with that hard and fast rule that I've had as a single man or a man that just entered into a relationship, would that still apply? If I'm being honest with myself, I don't think that it would. But nah, man, all of you guys are just dropping so many gems. Just want to swing it back over to you, Gary. Is there anything that you wanted to add to Tiffany's comment about the daughter, and as Michael had mentioned, and Koron as well, the son's impact, like how it would impact the children as far as creating a pattern of behavior?
Yeah. So in regards to her last comment, because she mentioned that her mom developed bitterness and resentment as a result. And then from there, she learned to never tolerate that type of thing inside of her relationships. I think that's a great thing. You should never tolerate that type of thing. And you also have to look at, why did she develop the bitterness and the resentment? Because look at what happens a lot of times after a man does cheat. There's this deeply guilt-ridden feeling and guilt-ridden activities that happen inside of the relationship, where now you say that you're going to forgive him, and he's now buying you flowers every day. He's telling you how beautiful you are every day. If he has to drive to the gas station, he's calling you to let you know where he's going and how quickly he's going to be back. All of these things that are not sustainable because you haven't been doing them from the beginning. So once you get to that point where it's like, all right, I feel like, it's been months now, she still hasn't forgiven me. I'm doing all of these things. I'm tired of doing these things. So you fall back into your regular habits. And then now when she's asking you where you are, what you're doing, now you're tired of it because you've been hearing the same thing for months. Like, if you don't trust me now, you're never going to trust me. A lot of men get to that point. So if her mom stayed, was things like that happening to where he's just like throwing his hands up and it's like, I'm still going to do whatever I want to do. Like, you're just going to have to deal with it. And so, yeah, she would develop that, bitterness and that resentment. She had a first part of her question too. Setting a pattern for daughters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. It's maybe because when you talk about, she's talking about a pattern, so that means this has to happen more than once. You can't have one time is not a pattern. So if there's a pattern of cheating and a cycle that they go through where he cheats, they separate for 2 weeks, she comes back into the house, they argue for a while, things go back to normal, he cheats, they leave it, like this whole cycle keeps happening, then yeah, that's going to set a bad precedent for her, because now the daughter can grow up looking like, okay, well, this is what happens in a typical relationship. I'm going to be mad for a little while, I'm going to argue with them, and then I'll end up coming back. So yeah, that can set a bad pattern. That can set a bad precedent, but also it can be an amazing sign of showing her forgiveness too. Because if it does happen and you see how mom handles it, like, how in the world did my dad cheat on my mom, and after all these years she still shows that she really loves him. It's like it never happened before, because she forgave him and she actually operated inside of that forgiveness. That would set an amazing example for both a daughter and a son. So it's very, very nuanced. There's a lot of blessings that can come from the sin, because God can do anything, but everything is situational.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Yo, great questions again, Tiffany. And we had a really great question that came in from Market Mergers. And I'm going to save it for the end because it speaks more so of what do we do to heal from the cheating process. So I think that that'll come further along after we answer some of these other questions. But before we move on to a different question, did either of you have any additional reasons that you wanted to add as to why a woman should consider staying? Anybody? I know you each shared maybe about one or two. Just wanted to give you guys the opportunity if there were any more that you may have had. Look like Michael, you said no. What about you, Koron? Any other reasons?
I think Gary touched on what would be my second reason on the importance of forgiveness. You definitely have to take time to really like get through the emotional part, because when it's not good to make decisions when you're emotional. So if a woman can get past that part and then really assess the situation to see, you know, how she really feels in terms of leaving. And I'm talking about people that's been together for a long time. I'm not just talking about someone you met 2 months ago. I'm talking about if you're in a marriage, you've been married for a long time, you really have to take time to make that decision. So I wouldn't really rush in. And another thing too, you have to take the time to see if you have the ability to forgive. Because if you don't have the ability to forgive, it's definitely never going to work. You're never going to trust them. It's just not going to be able to happen. So that's pretty much
Nah,
it for
that's
that.
good. That's good. And
That
coming
was
over to you, Gary, were there any additional? Oh no, Michael, you
Oh
had
no,
something you
no.
want to say?
I just wanted to say, Karan, that was a really great point at the end. The woman's capacity to forgive has to be taken into account, because if she's not going to forgive him, don't stay. Right? Don't stay.
That's
Yep.
real, real. Great point, both of you gentlemen. Gary, any other additional reasons that you like to share as to why a woman may consider staying after a man cheats?
No, I think we kind of touched on a lot of them. Is, you know, we got the financial, we got the just the overall love, we got the forgiveness.
Mhm.
I can't really think of too many other factors of why you would want to stay. But I may get something later.
Okay, yeah, and no pressure at all. So we did Tiffany left one last comment with regards to her situation with her mother. She says, "My mother shared later in life that she stayed because she loved him, had children, and felt financially dependent upon him. As a result, she made sure of not being dependent upon a man." And I think that that's a really good example of how some people can develop that way of thinking when it comes to, like, I'm not going to be dependent on a man. And we see that it comes from an experience that was negative that another person had. So there's always a root reason and cause as to why people believe and operate and move the way that they do. And I really appreciate Tiffany's vulnerability and her willingness to be transparent and share her experience as well as her mother. So thank you for that, Tiffany. Definitely appreciate it. So the next question that I want to ask you guys is more so about men and the women who stay, right? So this is the question: do men have the tendency to lose respect for a woman who chooses to stay with them after they've cheated? What's your take on that, Michael?
Well, I would ask the question, did he have much respect for her to begin with if he cheated? So the loss of respect depends on what level of respect he had for her to begin with. And it really depends, I guess, on the guy and, the circumstances of the cheating. I guess we keep saying that, but it's so true that this is all circumstantial based on the situation. But I guess if I'm speaking from my own perspective, I would say no. I wouldn't lose respect if someone's decided, if I cross that line and someone's willing to forgive me. I'm going to respect that person more, because I know what I would feel like if that line were crossed with me, how hard it would be for me to even consider forgiveness in that instance. So I wouldn't lose respect. In many ways, I would gain respect.
Nah, that's good. That's good. I appreciate you for sharing that. And what about you, Karan? What's your take on that? Do you feel like some men tend to lose respect for women who stay after they've been cheated on? Oh, hold on. I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. If you were going to use the word some, then I definitely would say yes. Some men definitely, or they already lost respect, like Michael hinted. Because once step outside of the bounds of the committed relationship, that's just disrespect, and there's a lack of respect there. Period. So if a man finds that he can take advantage, and this goes back to what we was talking about patterns. So like if it's a pattern and it's going to be a continuous situation of have to take a man back after he cheats, then the respect will dwindle each time the offense is committed. However, to try to be fair and objective, if a man like Michael says, if he really does love a woman, or he really does want to be with a woman, and he feels that he made a mistake, his respect possibly can grow. So that man probably won't lose respect. But some men, yes, they will take advantage of the situation, especially if the woman brings a lot to the table. It could be financially, it could be opportunities, it could be anything. If he feels that that woman has value, he definitely would look to take advantage of the situation. So.
No, I appreciate you for sharing that. And just want to give some comment shout outs. So Mark Emergent says, in my opinion, if you cheated, you've never respected your woman. And then Tiffany also wanted to thank everyone for helping her to understand why men cheat and how to begin understanding women who stay. So that's really good. And there are some comments that Black Belt left, and I'm gonna wait until we hear Gary's perspective. Then I'll bring those up with Black Belt sharing his perspective as well. So coming back over to you, Gary, what's your take about men who have the tendency to lose respect for women after they've stayed?
I definitely want to. I want to stay away from absolutes, like the last comment that was just made. If a man cheats, he never respected a woman in the first place. I'm sorry, it's just not true, because there's so many different factors. I'm not going to say it's not true, but it's not true in all cases. So like we can't put these blanket things and attach these blanket requirements on all men, because we all come up short in some way, shape, or form. So I think that's been a huge issue with men in general, and women too, is that we keep going through this pattern of trying to define what a man is, and everybody has their own view of this is what a man is, this is what a man does, this is what a high value man is. And because we create all these things in everybody's eyes, like who you are and what makes you a good person is going to look different. So I always want to keep that kind of at the forefront of my mind when I'm thinking about these types of things. But I don't necessarily think that a man would lose respect for the woman as much as they would lose respect for the relationship, especially depending on the way in which she handles finding out that he did cheat. So if he notices that like she has this process of like she's really bad, but in a few days she's all right, and she's not really bringing it up anymore, and like she just seems like she took it really well, then he can get that false sense of security, like, oh, okay, it doesn't mean all that much to her. She doesn't want me to do it, but it's not like she's not going to leave me because I did do it. So that could play a part in his thinking later on, if the situation does present itself again. Well, I know this is what I'm going to expect from her if I do this. And because she didn't leave me the first time, or, she didn't threaten to leave me, then, I don't have to worry about anything. So I definitely think I think men can still respect the woman that they're with, but some of the actions that result in how she deals with cheating, and some of the behaviors that are inside of the marriage can affect how much he values and respects the actual relationship and the sanctity of marriage.
Great point. Oh man, yo, you gentlemen have been dropping so many gems throughout tonight's entire show. And before we move on to our next question, I just want to give Koron the floor so that he can let you guys know about his channel, how you guys can show him some love and support, and definitely go subscribe to his channel as well. So, Koron, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Jay. So my channel, like I said before, I have a series that I'm doing 100 videos on what a man wants, and I'm trying to show ladies what a man wants with the hopes of improving male-female relationships. That's not the only thing I talk about. I also do a lot of research on concepts like high-value man, what makes a man a high-value man. I did a couple of videos on that, talking about Tristan Thompson and different celebrities or guys that woman might say is a high-value man. I also started talking about modern women as well. And I do a lot of research. And if you want to get some good insight onto things regarding those topics, definitely subscribe to my channel, Koron Pierre, spelled the same way it is on the screen. I'm on all social media. And also, I do have a complimentary checklist that I offer on my website, spelled the same way, koronpierre.com. You can go there, and the checklist basically helps a woman identify whether or not the guy is the right guy or the wrong guy for her. It's free of charge. You can just go to my website and download that.
Fantastic. Yo, definitely make sure you guys show some love for Koron. Like I said, wherever
Thanks.
you're watching, open up a new tab in your browser, hit that subscribe button. The link is in the chat as well as in the description wherever you're watching this on YouTube. So I appreciate that. So I did, as I promised, I did tell Black Belt that I would share his comments. So before we move to the next question, here's Black Belt's thoughts on our previous question. He said, if he's with a woman and he's upgraded her life and he ended up having a one night stand with some random lady in Chicago, that would be wild to assume that he does not respect a woman whose life he upgraded. And I think he also says, I can agree it was disrespectful, but dangerous to assume I have no respect for her as a whole. So I want to bring this up because we were just talking about respect. Is it fair for a man to say, hey, like, just because I cheated on a woman doesn't necessarily mean that I don't have respect for her, entirely? Anybody want to chime in and share your thoughts on like that, in addition to the things that you guys already shared, of course?
I would love to chime in if you guys don't mind.
By all means.
As far as Black Belt's comment, why, if you're such an alpha man, why don't you tell your woman that I'm going to keep my options open? So you're going to be my main woman, and but just because I'm with you, that's not going to stop me being with other women. So my thing is, if you're going outside of a commitment and you're telling this woman that she's the only one, and then you choose to go find someone else, in my opinion, that is disrespectful. Especially, we just talked about STDs. So more than likely, you're going outside of your relationship. You're having unprotected sex with your wife. You're more than likely having unprotected sex with these women on the side. That is a recipe for disaster. So now, let's say you go to Chicago and you pick up this lady, you have sex with her, you bring back an STD to the household. Now you give it to your wife. That is disrespectful. Is you're disrespecting her body. And I think that if you're a man in that position, you should move with more. I would say you should be more honest and open with a woman to let her know that you do not intend on being monogamous. You want to have an open situation where you can entertain whatever woman you want to entertain. That just would be my take on that.
No, I appreciate you for sharing that, Karan. And one of the things that I think is so important when we're having different discussions, and I'm really a stickler for this, is defining terms, right? And I think that one of the assumptions that we can make is that we all define respect the same. And I think it's really important to point out the fact that even a word as common as respect can be viewed completely different from one person to another, one man to another. And I would say, like, at the heart of it, we will really have to understand, like, how does Black Belt, how does each of the men on the panel, how do I define respect, to see if we are even in a common place when we're discussing, what's respectful and what's disrespectful. And, I just want to point that out because, his definition, our definitions, they may not necessarily be in alignment. And, if we were having a deeper, longer, more in-depth conversation on this topic, I think that the first order of business will be to make sure that we all could come to some agreement on the term that we're using. So, out of fairness to Black Belt, out of fairness to everybody on the panel, I think that a deeper discussion will have to be had to make sure that we were operating under the same assumption or definition of what respect is in a relationship and from a person's individual perspective as well. But I appreciate everybody for opening up and sharing your thoughts. This is definitely a safe space for, us to honor and respect one another, in the sense of allowing different opinions to be shared and, us acknowledging them without any debate or any combat going back and forth. And I appreciate everybody in the chat, as well as all of the gentlemen on the panel, for being respectful throughout tonight's discussion, because that's definitely what we stand on over here at Right to Real Love. But want to dive into our next question. And it speaks more so after the fact, after the cheating has occurred, after the woman has decided to stay. I want to get the man's perspective from each one of you guys. Do you feel like a man who has a woman who stayed after he cheated is more or less likely to cheat again? And once again, I know that these things are situational, But if we could look at it from general terms, like if a man has cheated, knowing what you know about a man who moves that way and has been forgiven, his woman decided to stay, do you think in general a man would be more or less likely to cheat again? Let's come over to you with this one, Michael.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the data says that he is more likely to do it. Like if you find studies, so I'll go with the studies. The studies say that he's more likely to do it. I'll let Gary correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's. But I'm pretty sure I've seen a study somewhere that says that the man is probably more likely to cheat if he's done it once before. And again, like you said, it's situational. If it's like, I one time thing in Chicago, but then even that, if you were in Chicago, right? How often are you traveling, right? And then how did you set the thing up in Chicago? Was it based on it's just so many things that play into this. But I would say my inclination would be to say yes, he's more likely to do it if he's done it before.
Nah, that's fair. That's fair. And just want to give a huge shout out, Natasha, for joining us. Really appreciate you for tuning in to the chat tonight, our live stream. Koron, what's your take? Do you feel like in general, a man is more or less likely to cheat after he's been forgiven and the woman has decided to stay?
I think it goes back to the reasoning. If a man is just a promiscuous man, or he's just trying to get his rocks off, more than likely he's going to do it again. But if you do have those situations where you start growing apart in your relationship, and a man might seek comfort elsewhere, and then he realizes that's the biggest mistake, he really values his life, and now he wants to come back, I think that type of man possibly won't do it again. I do think it's a situational situation. But going back to the Chicago situation, the guy who's cheating in Chicago is cheating in the hometown too. The Chicago thing is just something that is just a scenario we brought up. I don't think the location matters. I think that if a person is sexually motivated and they want to be promiscuous, they're going to continue that trait no matter what. My thing is, I just don't understand why we have to trap ourselves in monogamous relationships. And another thing too, just because a man wants to have sex doesn't mean the woman wants to have sex. Like I see that a lot. Like, oh, I just, I messed up, or I went astray. But it takes two to tango. And unless you're Russell Westbrook or somebody like that, a woman's not just going to open herself up for you. So you put a lot of effort into it. So it's not just a simple mistake. You have to court or take her out. Conversation. It just doesn't happen like that, where it's like I wanted it to happen and then it went down. So that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Nah, that's good. That's good. And now, Gary, what's your take on this? Do you think a man is more or less likely, especially speaking from your own personal professional experience? What have you seen?
I agree with you developing that. He's statistically speaking, a man is more likely to cheat again. But I also think that goes back to the reasoning why he cheated in the first place, and then are the behaviors that led you to cheat the first time, do they resurface once you have been forgiven? Like if the issue was wife withholding sex, can y'all have that tough conversation and say, listen, this was a contributing factor. I'm not trying to blame it on you or anything like that, but I'm just saying that like this really, it made it hard for me not to seek attention elsewhere because I wasn't getting anything from you. If we can have that honest conversation with one another and be transparent and say these types of things, then it allows for like true repentance. Like it allows for us to say, okay, I'm going to put these things in place so that this doesn't happen again. We don't tend to do that type of work. We tend to, like I said before, feel really guilty, go above and beyond and try to be super husband or super boyfriend for a couple of months. And then we get burnt out. We fall back into our old patterns. We get frustrated because there's no trust. We get frustrated because she's looking in your phone every 5 seconds. Frustrated because she's always accusing you now, or always holding it over your head. You be watching a TV show and you see somebody cheated on there. Now she's looking at you with them eyes. She always relating every kind of topic back to what you did, and things like that. Like, all that stuff can contribute to it happening again. And I'm not going to say it's 100% man's fault, not 100% woman's fault. It's both of your fault. Let me take away fault. Both of you played a role in the context of why it happened.
That's real talk. Oh man, I love it, you guys. And Black Belt brought it to my attention that he had a question that came up that he wanted to ask each of the gentlemen on the panel. So his first comment was, I completely agree with Koron. And I said it earlier in the chat that men should be upfront and just say that. I was just giving a hypothetical. So that's fair. And then this is the question that he would like to ask each of the gentlemen on the panel. I think it aligns with what we're talking about. He was saying, would you rather your daughter or your sister be with a successful man that occasionally has a side chick, or be with a monogamous man who is going nowhere in life? So I'll come to you with this one, Michael.
Well, that's a false dichotomy. So that's just limiting my choices.
Yeah, no doubt, no
I'm
doubt.
going with
He
neither.
definitely makes it clear one or the other.
Yeah, I'm going with neither. I ain't putting
Right.
that on either one of my daughters or my sisters. I'm sorry.
No, that's fair, man. That's fair. Karan, what's your take?
I'm with Mike. I'm gonna say neither, but if you had to back me into a corner, I'm gonna say the monogamous man that has nothing going on in his life, because that successful man could slip up and give my daughter HIV, and just because he has a lot of money, that doesn't fix every problem, So it's not just about the money; it's about how a man's going to treat you, and I think that's what Kevin Samuels talks about a lot. Like, he's trying to get these ladies to understand that you want these high value men, but it can come with a heavy price. And I personally don't think that that high value men are the best candidates for monogamous relationships anyway. So if you are dealing with a man like that, you have to open yourself up to these things that can happen. So.
Nah, that's a great point. And coming over to you, Gary, what's your take if you're put in this situation? I know it's a tough one.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards neither. But I would want to dig into, like, what are you saying a successful man is? Because if we're just
Yep.
talking about finances, like, that means absolutely nothing. Money comes, money goes. If you have a lot of money, like, you got problems. If you have no money, you have problems. Like, everything to me boils down to character. So if this is a truly, like, a good man, like, loves my daughter, does the best that he can, I would want her to be with him. And that type of person is less likely to be a cheater, especially if you discussed in the beginning of the relationship what the boundaries of the relationship were going to be. If you decided, like, listen, I just want it to be you and me, and y'all made that commitment, then that's more than likely what he's going to follow. But if if from the beginning he was like, listen, sometimes I like to play around, sometimes I like to do such and such, but I'm not going to fall in love with anybody, I'm not going to go and have kids with anybody else, but you discuss that in the beginning of the relationship and she says no to it, and then you agree to just be monogamous, then that's going to be a problem later on, because that was already inside your heart to go and, you know what I mean, to want to do those other types of things. So if any kind of issues arise inside your relationship, you're likely to go to some of those things that was already inside your heart. So it's I'm leading towards neither, but I definitely think that I want to know what is his definition of successful.
Nah, that's fair. That's fair. And
Yeah.
that kind of goes back to what I was, oh no, Michael,
Oh no,
go.
I just
I
wanted
mean,
to add another point to that. So, one of the things that I'm working on my site, and it's something that I'm teaching my sons and my daughters, is the classical Christian virtues. Right. So, if someone is a monogamous man, that means he probably has other virtues that would lead him to not be someone who's going nowhere in life. So, even the thought of that just seems to be, it's not, it doesn't match up. Right. If you have a man who is faithful and diligent to protect and care for a woman, or to want to be with a woman, that man should be someone who actually has the stability necessary to love and care for her. Why would my daughter? I can't even fathom that. Like, everything that I have done with my family would have failed if my daughters have that decision to make, just like between those two options. It doesn't even make any sense to me, because a virtuous man who is monogamous, who wants to love and care for my wife, is not going to my daughter is not going to be a man who's going nowhere.
You
not
said
a,
a great thing too, in that like defining a virtuous man. Like, when the society is teaching men now that like how you define yourself and the things that you strive for as a man is money, power, and respect.
Yep.
And those are the things that easily corrupt men, and it gives us such a false sense of manhood. Um, Now money, like flashing, wearing flashy clothes, driving the nicest cars. I feel like more of a man because of that. Or respect. Like, I feel like my wife doesn't respect me, so I need to hit her, so that way she sees that I'm a strong, powerful man. Like, I'm deserving of respect. Like, you start to do very toxic things to meet those metrics. Whereas if you define yourself as a man, as somebody that has integrity, somebody that has wisdom, somebody that values loyalty and knowledge, like those types of foundational qualities that will actually lead you to becoming wealthy and lead you to, gaining in power, because, like, people tend to promote people that are of good report. So it's like we overlook these very corny, foundational things, and go towards money, power, respect, which ends up creating narcissists.
Right. And it's money, power, respect by any means necessary.
Yep.
Which is
That's
never
a
a
great
good
point.
recipe. Yeah, I don't want my daughters
Great
with
point.
that type of man.
no, James, anything that you wanted to add or share to that, Karan?
I just wanted to say that was a great point. And that's what I do on my channel when I talk about high value men. I really go in to ask, how do we even quantify success? What does that mean? And money can be, just like how money can be obtained, it can be lost. So if you're going to use money to describe success, then a person could lose success once the money is gone. And if they don't have the good character, the things Gary was talking about, those things really matter. That's why I was not in my head, because I feel like he hit it right on the nail when he said, he talked about the character, he described the virtues, and we really have to get to the bottom of, what makes a person successful. Why is the monogamous guy considered the guy to have low values? No, nothing going on in life, right? I just don't understand that. But yeah, great point though. Great point from
Nah,
Gary.
yeah, great points across the board, gentlemen. And I'm really enjoying this conversation. And I think the chat is as well. Want to give a huge shout out. I see Krista join us. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hoping you're enjoying the discussion as well. Also saw Natasha. She came in and joined us. Thank you again for joining us as well, Natasha. And let's see. I think we had a few different comments. Katiwe had left a few comments. JD left a few comments. Tiffany left some comments. There's a lot. I'm not gonna be able to read through them all, you guys, but I just want to go through and just give shout outs to everybody that's leaving comments. Black Belt has left some other comments, and as well as Mark Emerger. So thank you guys so much for the comments. But right now, I want to get us back on track with our discussion and some questions that I have for the gentleman. So I really want to get your take on what are certain reasons that a man can give for cheating that will lead a woman to stay. So like, let's kind of break down like the rationales behind what some men are saying that are, for lack of a better term, convincing women to forgive and stay. Let's come up to you with this one, Michael. What are you thinking are some of these reasons or things that they're sharing?
So I think I should punt this one to Gary, but I'll take because
But
he's
by all
probably
means, if
heard
you want to pass
way
it
more
to him
than
and
way
come
more of these
last.
reasons than I have, right? Yeah, I'm not in pastoral ministry, so I'm not hearing a lot of the reasons that women are staying. But yeah, I can't really think of many. I mean, I've heard ones, right? This was my, yeah, baby. Look, I'm gonna let Krista answer that. It was completely my fault, baby. It was my fault. I take full responsibility. There's one. Thank you, Krista.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair, Michael. So Koron, do you want me to go to Gary first, or you want me to come over to you next?
I got one thing I can say because
Yes.
there's different types of physical infidelity. The one I feel like, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about the emotional and the physical and how women feel about the emotions. But like opportunistic infidelity, like the situation, I can't remember the guy's name who put the comment up about Chicago. Like if a man can sort of convince a woman that he was just in a bad position, a bad predicament, like he was out at the company party, had too many drinks, and now he finds himself in the coworker's bed. If it's a situation like that, where it was just a one-time thing, he could convince a woman that that would be the case. I think that would be the type of infidelity that could be forgiven. If it's just like something that just happened out of the blue, you was intoxicated and you was just in a bad place, and yeah, that's the only thing I could think of right now. But Gary, I want to hear Gary's take because he's the
Right.
he's the
Yeah. I
expert.
mean, we waiting, man, for him to give us the clinical breakdown. Gary, the floor
Man,
is yours.
I don't think there's a real clinical breakdown on this one. Like I've heard
I
all
just
the
want to hear
reasons.
what he's heard in his sessions. That's all.
Right.
Actually, some of the stuff he's heard.
So it depends on the type of man that comes in. So I've had some that have come in and have actually been successful at blaming the girlfriend or blaming the wife for them cheating, because for those very reasons of, listen, you wasn't doing this for me. I told you 1,000 times that, like, this is what I needed. You haven't been making any kind of effort. Like, you don't take the initiative enough and give me what I need. So I ended up doing such and such with so and so because she was there. She was the one that was talking to me about what was going on. I was confiding in her, and it just happened. So you got them, and then you have that's kind of atypical. Mostly the ones that come in are saying, like, listen, it was my fault. I'm really sorry. It wasn't until after I did this that I realized how much I love you, how much I value you, and what I mean, it'll never happen again. Just give me another chance. Like, that is kind of the norm. And that tends to be the ones that work out a little bit more, especially if we can get them to a place of forgiveness. But it's the men that are, I feel like they're a little bit more insecure, so they try to place the blame for anything that goes wrong in their life. They try to attribute it to someone else or something else. Those are the ones that try to say, okay, well, she wasn't taking care of herself. She got overweight. Like, she obviously lost, she stopped caring about the relationship. She stopped caring about how she looked. So that means I can go and step out and do whatever I got to do. The one where a guy can truly believe, like, listen, I'm coming home to you though. Like, I'm out here doing whatever I got to do throughout the day, but at the end of the day, I'm coming home to you. I hate that so much because I hear so many women talk about that, especially when they argue with other women. Like, when they found out that he cheated and they calling up and talking to her on the phone, and they're like, oh, but he's coming home to me at night. That means nothing. So yeah, I've seen that. I've seen guys just literally just ghost a woman afterwards. Like, they were inside of a long-term relationship for months. Come to find out, he had a whole night. He was engaged to somebody else, and like decided to work it out with this person and just decided to get married. So they ghosted the person, the long-term relationship. And you know what I mean? It all just came to a head after she did, women are great detectives. After she did her detective work and found out what was going on. But yeah, those are kind of like some of the basic things. Men tend to not be very creative when it comes to reasons for doing something stupid. It's like, my bad, or like, it's your fault.
Nah, that's gems. Michael, anything you want to, share in reference to what Gary just shared? He like thumbs up all the way, right? Nah, that's dope. That's dope, man. And
I have a
I
question for
appreciate it.
Gary,
Yeah,
if you don't mind me asking.
of course.
Have you seen any couples come into your office and maybe they had issues with cheating and they decided to go to like open up their marriage? Have you ever seen any couples have success with that or anything in that regard?
I have had a couple that came in and they opened up the marriage. They invited, in this case, it was inviting another woman into the relationship, to where it was, he could sleep with her, but it could only be, and she has to be there. She has to be participating. He couldn't have any kind of outside, like couldn't take her out anywhere or have any kind of other communication other than when they both reach out to her and, ask her to come over and do something. Um, Honestly, there's no long-term study showing, like, I don't believe that that's going to work out in the long term. Like, after seeing me, they didn't leave each other as a result of that, but that is becoming so common. I'm hearing that in so many different spaces now, to where marriages are opening up like that. Um, it's hard to say that it's, in a biblical sense, it's wrong, but it's hard to say that in terms of a practical sense of a marriage. It depends on the mindset of a woman. If a woman views sex as just an act with nothing attached to it, and views men as this is just something that they need, and you know what I mean, I don't have to necessarily be the sole provider of that, then if she has that outlook, she's more likely to enjoy her marriage because she's enjoying it for other reasons and not attributing the sex to having anything to do with the marriage. Those types can be successful, but the types that are very rigid and is listen, it's me, you, and if you're not getting it from me, you better not be getting it from anybody else. They're difficult. I've really been doing some soul searching and like thinking about what my view is on it, but it's hard to say that, other than, me being a Christian and having an opinion, it's really hard to say that, men shouldn't be doing this or you shouldn't open your relationship up. If you have if you put boundaries in place and have the parameters of what the relationship looks like, who am I to start counseling you and say you can't do that or you shouldn't do that?
Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. Like for me, it won't work out for me personally. But the only reason why I asked that is I was just curious to know, if you've seen people do it. But it's also safer because a lot of times people don't talk about STDs, and when I talk about it, I feel like people don't really get the severity of what I'm saying. Like STDs are up now, and people just act as if like that doesn't come with the packaging. And all I'm saying is, if it is like you said, if a woman feels that, sex is not, it's just something a man needs and it's not something that's serious or whatever, I think that it may be something to consider, but it's not nothing that I would personally recommend. So,
but it's also like, if you need to open your relationship up to that third person, and it's because the guy really wants it, if it's because the guy just wants variety and wants to spice it up, then after a while, that person that they brought in, that's going to get old too. So
right, good
you're
point.
always going to need more variety. So that's why that's why I have a hard time seeing if it's going to work out long term, because it's like, unless you're saying, listen, every 3 months we're going to change one out, bring a new one in, then it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy.
How's it going to be sustainable either way?
Yeah, I agree. All right.
Nah, great question, Koron. I appreciate you for asking that. And great gems always, Gary. All of you gentlemen are dropping so many gems. And huge shout out to you, developing that. We had somebody that joined and was a new subscriber, and he said that he came as a result of you. So I appreciate that. All the way in Germany too, man. He said it's like 2 a.m. his time. So we appreciate you for tuning in and
Worldwide.
hope you're enjoying the discussion. So thank you so much for that. And before we get into our next question, I want to hand the floor over to my man Gary to let you guys know how you guys can show him some love and support, and definitely check out and subscribe to his channel as well. So without further ado, the floor is yours, Gary.
Yes, so I'm on social media under just Gary Nelson Counseling, particularly my YouTube channel. If you could take a stop over there, join, like a couple videos, that helps. But the main purpose of me doing that YouTube channel was to bring mental health to the forefront of the Black community, really. And I've been trying to think about ways to do that are interesting, because it's really boring to just go on to make a video and talk about symptoms of depression and stuff like that. So what I've been doing is I'll make a video that's an explainer video. I'll talk about a certain subject, and then later on in the week, I'll post a short film. So I hire actors out. I'm a professional videographer also. So I go and make short films that kind of highlight what it is that I'm talking about. And, I'll post that. So on Mondays, I'll post a how-to. On Fridays, I'll post the short film. There's going to be a little bit of a lag right now because I'm in the middle of booking some of the shoots out. So that the next short film is probably going to be about a month away. But yeah, the focus of the channel is literally to help us see like that mental health is playing a role very deeply inside of our community, and we have names for things that describe people that we don't actually realize are mental health disorders. So I just want to get us up to date on like what some of the symptoms are, what's the criteria, and like some of the things that you can do to improve yourself and improve your relationship.
Amazing. Yo, Gary, you and Koron and Michael are all doing amazing work on your channels. I have definitely dropped the link to Gary's channel in the chat, and it's also in the description of this live stream. So wherever you're watching, open up a new browser tab and definitely make sure you hit that subscribe button and show them some support. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, the comments have been on point. You guys have been amazing tonight. I only have like a handful of questions left, maybe one or two. And then I'm gonna circle back to a question that has been left in the chat, some that I'm starring. And I'll be honest, like I didn't know I could start comments on StreamYard until tonight, but I'm glad because now I know how to just like put them in my pocket and come back to them later. So that's perfect. So the next question that I would like to ask each of you gentlemen is, we've already kind of gone through the process. So the man cheated, he went through the, giving his excuse, his reason, his rationale as to why she should stay. She's made the decision to stay, and now dealing with the aftermath. So what I want to know is, what are some of those changes that a man must make in order for after a woman agrees to stay? What changes must he do? We've talked about accountability and responsibility. So let's really talk about it. If there's anybody out there who's gone through this situation, what must the man do to, right this wrong? Let's start with you, Michael.
Yeah, and I would say you hit the nail on the head with a couple of them. It's got to be accountability, taking responsibility and accountability. That can begin to help heal. And again, it's just from the Christian perspective, that's just walking in repentance, right? Daily walking in repentance, battling the demons. So the thing that the thing that he's doing, the activities that he's doing. So I like to call it the sin cycle, from a book by Stuart Scott called Killing Sin Habits, right? So you recognize your sin patterns. And then before, so let's say if cheating for him starts with making that, opening his phone up and looking at the phone number of the woman that he's been with in the past, and that jogs his memory. Well, what he's got to do is he's got to take steps to make that impossible to do. You've got to delete that phone number, right? You've got to take steps to actually combat the sin habit that you've developed. So and then in so doing, as he improves that, then there's communication that comes along with it, right? You've got to communicate that you've taken those steps and that you are taking those steps and being transparent with the person that you cheated on, your wife. And again, I would say so accountability, learning how to repentance, meaning learning how to kill those sin habits, and then transparency and communication, I would say would be three things. And I'll yield the floor.
No, that's great. That's great. And we actually had a comment that came in from Black Belt really quickly. He was saying he must atone and show a level of commitment and investment that she has never seen from him. And that's a really great point. Really great point. Hope you guys are enjoying tonight's show. If you are, hit that like button. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more great content as well. But right now, coming over to my man, Koron, what's your take on this, man? What are some of the changes that a man must make to right this wrong?
Well, he's definitely going to have to take full accountability. He can't come with the same rhetoric or excuses that Gary made, where he's trying to pass the blame off. Because if he's trying to pass the blame off, then that puts the accountability back on the woman, and that she's going to have to make changes. When in reality, the accountability has to be on the man. And he's definitely going to have to take accountability. You're definitely going to have to go. I would also say seek out Gary, seek out a counselor. You're going to need a third party to be that objective heir, to give you the tools to work through your relationship. And while you're doing those things, he's going to have to help restore trust by, going the extra mile. So like, similar to what I can't remember the guy's name in the comment with the Chicago story, but his quote that you just put up, he's going to have to really do some groundbreaking, things that he possibly never has done before. So like if he was sleeping with a coworker, he may have to leave his job just to show that I don't even want to be in the same, environment as this person. Like he's going to have to make complete 180 change, and that's about it. Continue going to counseling, and eventually, if the woman is willing to forgive, there may be some hope.
Great point, Koron. And coming over to you, Gary, what's your take when it comes to the changes that this man must make to right the wrong?
So actually I disagree with the concept of first needing to atone, because in my eyes there is no atonement. You've done something that fundamentally alters the nature of your relationship with the woman, and a lot of times the problem is that we're always searching for an endpoint. We're always searching for can we do, what can we show that shows that we're forgiven, and so it's like a lot of times we don't meet that endpoint, or when we think that we meet it, we haven't met it inside her eyes, so we end up getting frustrated because of that. So I think more so we need to show a commitment to the addressing the psychological aspects and the practical aspects. So psychological meaning, why did you do it? Understand, being honest with your spouse as to what was missing. Trace it back, definitely with a counselor, trace back to where you developed your sense of your sense of self-esteem, and like what things is it that being with a lot of women boost your self-esteem? Were you getting different things from different women? Was it that these women were all affirming you in some way, or they were making you feel really good about yourself? Are you susceptible to those types of things? Like deeply addressing those roots of why it happened. Is it because of lust? So if it's because of lust, then the very practical things, like, are you watching pornography? If you are, okay, you got to take that out. What's something practical you can do? You can get software that monitors your web activity. Showing that you're making a commitment to addressing the issues that led directly to the fall. So definitely seeking forgiveness, but also making sure that you're constantly showing that you have changed without doing something over the top. I don't think that you have to go and make some crazy type of change, because those often are the unsustainable things. But showing that you are hitting the nail on the head and what the root was of the issue, and those are the things that you are trying to change. I think a lot of time, I think if a woman sees those direct things, it makes it easier for her to forgive. But you will at some, like, I think it's inevitable at some point, we're always gonna, that question is always gonna linger, like, what are you, what are you doing, like, where have you been out, so if you've been out, if you've typically been out till midnight and then you come home, and typically you don't you don't call, your wife, you don't check in, you just come home, and before you had that sense of trust to where you can do that, maybe now the marriage looks a little bit different to where, all right, I know it's 9 o'clock, let me check in, let her know where I'm, what I'm doing, and make that part of your habit. And that's something that's small, that's sustainable, that can constantly give her reaffirmation that you're still on the right track. So I think it's a combination, psychological, practical, put them together, and hopefully you get forgiven.
Oh yeah. Oh man, you men have been dropping gems. That is what MenChat is all about. Michael, Koron, and Gary, I appreciate you guys so much. You've answered all of the questions that I had. There are some questions that I starred from some of our people in the chat who's been showing us some love all night. And there was one quick one in relation to one of the points that you made, Koron, and just want to get Michael and Gary's thoughts on this. Krista had asked, so you guys don't think leaving a job is too extreme? I have to say, and just to throw my 2 cents in there, I'm in agreement with Koron. I think that if you cheated with somebody on that job, it may sound extreme to some people, but I think if you really want to get back into the good graces of your woman, your wife, and you want to show that you are seriously not trying to fall back into that situation, I think that it's not something extreme to do. But definitely want to get your take, Michael, and yours as well, Gary. So what's your take, Michael?
So I don't think it's too extreme. You just better have another job lined up, because we're not trying to go hungry over this. I'm
Right.
just being honest. I'm not trying to go destitute, quitting a job because, and I think there's wisdom there. Obviously, he wouldn't quit the next day. I hope she's not irrational enough to make him quit the next day. But I don't think it's something that's out of the realm of possibility. I mean, if you cheated at work with someone who you work with, either that person needs to go or you need to go, unless you can prove that you have an inordinate amount of self-control and temperance. But we already know that you don't have that, because you wouldn't be in this situation. So I'll leave it at that.
Nah, that's fair. That's fair, Michael. What's your take, Gary?
Yeah, I don't think leaving a job is too extreme. But I also would want to look at some of the. It depends on your relationship. It depends on who it was. Does a person work in the same department as you? Is it something that you can do to get yourself transferred to another department? Is there something, a compromise or something practical you can do inside your relationship to redevelop the trust? Maybe on my lunch breaks now, I go outside, sit in my car, call my wife, talk to her for a bit. If that's something that helps to reassure her. But I don't think leaving a job, especially if you don't have something lined up that is comparable, that won't fundamentally destroy all of your finances. Like, I think you can say, all right, I'll agree to leave after we do this job search. After we got the next one lined up, I'm committing to you that I'm willing to leave this job. Like, you know what I mean? Like, nothing's too, I don't say nothing is, but I don't think it's too extreme, as long as you are kind of looking at the whole picture and kind of taking a look at some of the practical things that you can do and see if they work for you. Everything is dependent on if it works for you.
Nah, that's real. That's right. Tiffany was in the chat heating it up, asking about what if it was a business partnership as opposed to a job. And we had some really great comments that came in from Natasha and Black Belt in reference to that. And just wanted to shout you guys out. I appreciate you guys in the chat. You've been there all night. Fellas, before we wrap up, I just want to just take a moment to just thank those who have recently become Patreons for us. That really means a lot to me. recently started the Patreon. We are going to be releasing some exclusive content. So I just want to give a huge shout out to Cynthia, Tiffany, Godson, and Faith for being our first day one real ones. If you guys also want to join and show your support for what we're doing over here, you can by all means become a Patreon. The link is right there in the ticker, patreon.com/jmanual. But with that being said, before I let these men go and enjoy the rest of their evening, I did have a few questions that I started to decide. Are you guys good to answer those? All right, fantastic. So the first one, going back to Tiffany, or no, I think it was Market Mergers. Yeah, first one came from Market Mergers. She said, "Should women decide to stay in a relationship with their men after deceptive cheating? How do you advise healing to occur? What are the steps that one can take to come to grips with cheating and overcome it?" So let's start with you, Michael. What does that healing process look like from your perspective?
That sounds like a Gary question.
By all means, we can slide it
Because
over to
I
Gary.
don't look,
Gary,
I have a very, I think we sort of answered this one when we talked about healing, right, and just some of the steps that need to be taken. But I guess we can reiterate some of those. Healing has to come first. The woman has to decide that she wants to forgive. The man can do an inordinate amount of things, grand gestures, make skywritings, all kinds of things. If the woman doesn't want to forgive him, she's not going to forgive him. So it has to start with that one. If she really wants to stay, she has to find it in her heart to forgive. Because again, the man has to show some sort of repentance and change in behavior. She shouldn't forgive him and just be blind and say, "Oh well, he's going to keep doing it. I forgive him. No, that's being a doormat, right? We don't want to create doormats. But if the man is actually walking in repentance, showing signs, it's just going to be a day-by-day, step-by-step process where, again, Gary mentioned so many good things. Just doing the small things, like if you cheated on work, make sure you go out to your lunch, change it up. Make sure your lunch break is you're calling your wife, right? Don't stay out late at night. If you're used to staying out late at night, or if you're going to be late, make sure you call and check in. Things like that. That's going to begin the healing process. And the healing process is just going to take time. It's just going to take time. The trust was broken over time. It wasn't a one-day thing that caused the infidelity. It's not going to be a one-day thing that solves it. It's going to be a process of time where these actions are taken. And again, actions are going to speak louder than words, and he's got to show himself to be the type of man that he claims that he was when the vows were taken. So.
Nah, great point, Michael. And I guess from my perspective, I was kind of looking at it from the woman's purview, because we know that there's a part of her that needs to be healed too. And I think you all did an excellent job of speaking to the things that a man can do. And I guess my question that kind of piggybacks off of Market Merger's question is, are there separate steps that a woman can do to go through the healing that is separate from what the man's responsibility and his actions are? Just want to toss that over to you, Koron. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's a little similar to what we discussed before, but one of the things I would say is definitely don't make a decision, emotional decision. Take the time before you decide the fate of the relationship, because of course he cheated, so you're going to be upset. It's going to be devastating. So you're probably going to want to kill him. Forget just like leaving, right? So, but when we make decisions during those emotional times, usually doesn't yield the best outcomes, because now a woman might say, well, he cheated, so I'm leaving. Now a year goes by, 6 months go by, time goes by, and you start to think, well, he did say he didn't love her. He did say that it was just a one-time thing. He did. So you need to take the time to really, get yourself together before you can make any decisions, right? And then if you guys are separated because maybe she doesn't want to be in the same house, it's too painful to be together. Maybe during the time for separation, maybe she can go out and get some individual counseling. Contact Gary. Shameless plug again. To really, get her mind together and to help her figure out whether or not she even wants to go through the process of making this relationship work. So I would just say, in terms of a woman's healing, just take your time. You don't have to rush into any decision, especially when it's fresh, because you're going to be emotional. And then typically when you're emotional, you're not thinking clearly. So you need to take the time so you can get your ducks in a row.
Great points. Great points, Koron. What about you? What's your take on this, Gary, with regards to the woman's role in healing on her end?
Ooh, so by deceptive cheating, I'm thinking talking about like hiding messages and like stuff like that. That's a whole nother layer because now before I'm really referring to these very spur of the moment types of things, these very kind of lust induced types of things. But if you're having, for weeks you have texting going back and forth, and then you're making sure you're going and covering your tracks, and like you have a pattern of actively doing that, that is a whole nother layer, and that part is a whole lot harder to forgive, but I think it deserves having the entire conversation. So I think the first step for a woman would be to ask the questions why. Don't feel ashamed to ask why. Don't feel ashamed to say everything that you're thinking and everything that you're feeling. It might come out as I hate you. It might come out as I wish I didn't do this, or I wish you didn't do this or that. But having him be open to hear everything that you have to say, and not just once, but as many times as she needs to go back and have the conversation. Because that's kind of a common thing with women. A lot of times it's like, yeah, we talked about this 5 times, but later on, as she's when she's laying down in bed, she's thinking of new things and wanting to know more things. Like showing her that you're open enough and transparent to say, listen, I'll tell you everything that was going into it. I'll tell you everything that I did, everything that I was thinking, so that way you can have the whole picture and make a decision after hearing all the information. After everything's presented to me, now I can make a decision to forgive you or to walk away. But definitely, I would say the first huge step to even thinking about healing or seeking closure is definitely making sure that you ask and talk about everything that was related to it, because that conversation, so many times that conversation gets shut down because a lot of times women don't kind of formulate what questions that they have ahead of time, so they go based off of emotion a lot, and it's just a lot of how stupid were you, like what, like all these kind of gotcha type questions. And after a while, guy gets tired of answering them, like, yo, listen, we talked about this 1,000 times. When is this going to be done? But no, like getting past the anger, just like Koron said, getting past all the emotional aspects of it, and now asking those nuts and bolts questions, like, do we have enough left to salvage a marriage? Was there ever a foundation to this? And if it is, like, how do we build from there?
Oh man, thank you so much for sharing that, Gary. Yo, chat, I hope you guys have enjoyed tonight's MenChat. I know I've enjoyed it. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Koron. And thank you, Gary, so much for coming on and being guests on the live show. Before we wrap up, I just want to give each of you the opportunity. If there is any questions that you have for me or one another, feel free to ask. Or are there any last or closing words you like to leave us with? So let's start with you, Michael. Any questions or any last words?
Yeah, I've enjoyed the conversation. I'm really interested in this topic. I think it's a very like Gary has sparked my interest in a lot of different scenarios. I'm actually going to go over and start watching some of his videos. I've already subscribed. I subscribe to you as well, Koron. I'm gonna be watching you all's videos. I've enjoyed this time talking to both of you. Hopefully we can do it again. I may invite you all on my show, right?
Oh yeah, yes, yo, you guys are amazing, absolutely amazing. Thank you for that, Michael. It's been a pleasure having you on the show as well. Karan, what about you, man? Any questions or any last or closing words you like to leave us with?
Well, thanks for subscribing, Mike. I appreciate it. And to anyone else, if you subscribe to my channel, I definitely appreciate it. Yeah, no, this was a great show. Jay, thanks for having me. I appreciate the conversation. It's a great conversation. I'm actually writing a book, and this topic is sort of one of the topics I address in my book. So it was just right up my alley. And like Mike said, this is a topic I'm also really, passionate about, or I really like to have. So, yeah, definitely I'm open to having it again, this or even engaging in other topics. So I'm just thankful and great conversation. Good points.
Yo, thank you, Koron. It's been such a pleasure having you on. Like I said, all of you gentlemen have dropped so many gems tonight. So thank you both, as well as you, Gary, for coming on. It means a lot to me. And Gary, did you have any questions or last or closing words you like to leave us with tonight?
I definitely want to thank you, Jay, for even thinking about me to, invite me on. Like, this has been such a blessing to me to like be in the midst of other men that like are in committed relationships, that have children. Like, you know what I mean? This is to me, this is the true narrative of Black men. You know what I mean? Like, this is the norm. This is the standard. So much in the media portrays the least of us in terms of like the men that don't do what they're supposed to do, men that are kind of out doing their own thing and like doing all the wrong things. But there's so many more men that are like y'all, that like they just go about their business. They business minded, family minded. We often don't get highlighted because I think a lot of us were taught to put our head down and work and not seek all the attention. And because of that, the wrong people have been getting attention. And you know what I mean? So now that's why you're seeing Developing Dad coming out, Jay Manuel coming out, Koron coming out, and like coming up with these podcasts and these channels, because now there is a need for us. So I'm so appreciative of that. Also, if everybody, anybody would like, please visit my website. It's nelsoncounseling.org. I have Koron, you reminded me of books, so I wanted to give a shameless plug to. I have a children's book, so I do counseling-based children's books that focus on teaching about mental health disorders and like the practical things. So I have a book, children's book that's called All Eyes on Me, and it shows kids like what does anxiety look like and how does it play out in their normal school day, and like things that they can start doing to realize that that's what anxiety is and how to kind of start overcoming it. So I appreciate your support. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh man, such an honor. Thank you so much for letting me know about your book as well. I'm gonna definitely make sure I add a link to your website as well as your book as well. And that's so dope, man, because the more we can educate our children on these things, they can do like us and avoid some of these pitfalls that we've encountered in life. So that's a really great point. Before we go, gentlemen, just want to lastly shout out the chat, a few different comments, and then we'll wrap things up. So Natasha said, great conversation, gentlemen. Very enlightening. I pray no one is going through this situation. Yeah, I hope no one is as well, Natasha. Tiffany says, wow, Jay, Michael, Gary, and Koron, thank you guys for such a great show. We appreciate you for joining us. And then once again, Natasha says, super engagement from the chat. Yeah, the chat was on fire. We appreciate Dojo of Manhood, aka Black Belt specifically. You continue to make her think. Yeah, I think you definitely add some really great questions on Black Belt that leave us with things to ponder, and I appreciate that. Tiffany will definitely subscribe to everybody's channel. I appreciate that. JD Clay gives everybody a round of applause. We appreciate you so much for that. So thank you, everybody, for joining us on tonight's show. We typically go live on Tuesday, but we won't be going live tomorrow. We'll be back next Tuesday, which is February the 8th, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We'll have a great show lined up, and we can't wait to catch you guys then. Until then, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, subscribe. So subscribe to everybody's channel here. I said the link is in the description for Developing Dad, Koron, as well as Nelson Counseling. So make sure you show these brothers some love and support, and definitely enjoy their content. But with that being said, that's everything we got for tonight. We'll catch you guys next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, you guys stay blessed.